Hi everyone, today is Code Siphon's turn to be tested, and we'll be doing it in none other than Kit. Initially, I think Kit is the best shaper ID to use Code Siphon on. Of course, you don't port it out of faction simply because it calls for influence. In shaper, Kit is probably the best ID choice because her ability guarantees that your Code Siphon will always land, so long as you have a one ice server with a code gate breaker out. So this is my rationale for bringing Code Cipher into Kit. It's challenging to make it work because you're playing with a constraint of 10 influence. But I eventually decided to go with the stealth rig simply because with Code Siphon, you are telling yourself, I'm going to use SMC and Code Siphon instead of test run scavenge. So I want all my programs to stay on the board and I want them to be very efficient. So going in this direction, I decided to build the stealth kit using switchblade and refractor. Corroder is my fractor, and to make my runs efficient, every single turn I'm going to make one run, and with the help of Drifter and John Masanori and Data Sucker, those runs are going to be very efficient even if I only see access one card every turn. They should add up over time. So this deck should have some fantastic staying power. Unfortunately, my opening and mulligan hands, I mulligan into a worse hand. My opening hand did not have refractor, hence I discarded it, but this hand is much worse. There's no refractor, there's no money. The only thing there is a John Masanori, and thankfully he left R&D wide open. I'm not sure why you would leave R&D open against Kit, but, well, I suppose he was agenda flooded, so that's fine. And it is very telling if you are installing Data Pike as your outermost piece of ice. As your first piece of ice on HQ, because against Kit, you do not want Code Gates as your inner ice. So he still doesn't ice out R&D. I'm going to get a free run, and the John Masanori draws me into Account Siphon. I obviously have to trash Melange at this point, and Account Siphon, not Account Siphon, Code Siphon. You can actually use it on an unguarded R&D. This situation almost never crops up because if you're playing against Shaper, you ice out R&D as first priority, especially against the 10 influence kit. Since he didn't, I'm going to get a free refractor. Well, it's not free, it cost me 1 credit, and I now have a tag, which is unfortunate because right after icing out R&D, he blows up my John Masanori, which I'm fine with since he's pretty poor. So, I know I've seen a close accounts from his deck, so that is something I have to expect. At this point, I wanted to clear the tag, but I drew into Dirty Laundry. So if Dirty Laundry can give me a burst of credits, why should I clear my tag right now? So I'm just going to float the tag and gain credits. He reses a daily business show and begins drawing massively. Now this is really annoying for me because it's very hard to trash daily business show. Kids economy is just meh. It's pretty awful. This deck is no exception. It relies a lot on stealth credits, so there aren't that many other credit generating mechanisms in this deck. So he does go through with the close accounts, which is I actually wish he didn't do that, but I was quite surprised that he actually did it even though I only had 2 credits in my credit pool. No worries, I was going to recover the next turn with a Dirty Laundry into his R&D, knowing that he has no credits left. The only way he could stop me from making the run, well, he couldn't. Even with pop-up window, I've a cloak out with a refractor, so I'm getting through the server. And that's got me the Astro Script. Very lucky net there. And of course, with the newfound credits, I clear the tag. No questions there. So, yeah, very good start for me. 1 Astro Script denied, and all his inner eyes are code gates, which is making my life really easy. I'm going to get lots of successful runs. The problem is my John Masanori got blown up, and I don't really have anything in the form of money or card draw. So I guess it starts here. I drew into a Grifter. So I gain credits. Do I want to run through the pop-up window? I don't think so. I don't want to make a run this turn. So I installed my Astrolabe, and that's that. Astrolabe is quite important against MBN in general. I actually intended to install this on my first turn, but yeah, the code Siphon distracted me, so that took priority over installing the Astrolabe. In the meantime, he does create an extra server, which triggers Astrolabe, so the free draw is really nice. And that drew me my John Masnori, so that's where the fun starts. With John Masnori and Grifter, I can actually start playing the game. Every turn, I'm going to get one free card and one credit, as long as I can keep up the runs, one run every turn. And it's definitely possible this game because he has empty remote servers, unprotected remote servers. So, yeah, John Masnori goes up, and I suspect that he was dumping agendas and having a Jackson out, so I ran Archives instead of Jackson. This allows me to trigger Masanori. And with Grifter, you always run before installing Grifter, so that you can be guaranteed that it will trigger at the end of your turn. Alright, he installs another new remote, which fuels my Astrolabe once again. And another piece of ice. Where is he gonna put this one on? Probably R&D. That would be a wise choice, so he does. Because I ran R&D interface, I was waiting to play it. Accessing 2 cards of R&D for just the price of 1 credit is very good for me. Too bad he iced it up now. That was a very good choice by him. I wanted to make that play, but I had no credits to do so. I saw a second daily business show, if I remember correctly. So after making that run, I just gained 3 credits, and John Masnori and Grifter both trigger. So at this point, I don't think I can contest the daily business shows. Now all I can do is to just build up my rig and make runs every single turn. The Tinkerings in my hand are actually pretty useless this game because he didn't manage his ice types very well. All the inner code gates give me a field day basically. He ices out Archives, a very weird choice. I'm not sure why he would do that. Probably protection against Sneak Dog, which is actually quite smart. But well, I can always get through it with Refractor, no matter what. I guess it will stop the multi-access. So here I make a crucial mistake. I run into Archives to trigger both John Masnori and Grifter. If that were a wraparound, I'm not getting through. 7 strength. I completely forgot about wraparound, and he can easily rest that for 2 credits. That is the biggest problem when playing Kit. You have to be concerned about wraparound, whether you're playing a Gordian Blade kit, a York kit, or a Refractor kit. That is terribly expensive to break until you find your barrier breaker. Thankfully, it wasn't a wraparound, he didn't res it, and game goes on. At this point, finding the SMC is pretty nice, but I need more in the form of economy and draw. So he installs a new Jackson, and that draws me into my Shakana. This will be interesting. This is one of my forms of R&D pressure. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do. So many forms of R&D pressure in the same deck, that makes my deck very reliant on getting through R&D. But anyway, since it's cheaper than R&D interface, I'm just going to install it. And it's particularly good against NBN, so why not? Getting through both pop-up windows, I'm going to access one, and this gives me 1 Shakana token. A wraparound, that's not what I want to see. That is going to ruin my day. I considered running R&D again to get a second virus counter, but decided it wasn't worth it. I should just run once every turn. Don't waste, just make use of the stealth credits. So yeah, if you want to play a stealth deck, to play to the fullest, what you really must do is to make the full use of the stealth credits. So if you're not running most of the time, it's pretty pointless. Alright, Manhunt is a huge concern for this deck. Doesn't really run too many run events, and it has 0 link. This is not ELP, this is Manhunt. Yes, it has 0 link, so, and yeah, it has very poor economy, so Manhunt is terrible. That is why I have 1 net celebrity in this deck. Unfortunately, I don't have it right now, and I'm completely reliant on making runs, so that is a weakness of my deck. So I'm forced to eat the Manhunt interface, but with the R&D interface installed, hopefully I can find an agenda to get rid of Manhunt quickly. We'll see how successful I am. He reshuffles Money Bank to his deck, and He traces me for 4. Well, I'll let the trace fire and I'll clear the attack manually because money at this point is way too important for me. I catch a glimpse of the Scorched Turf, so that's the kind of deck he's running. And then I look at the top of my archives. I discarded a plus crit earlier on. What was I thinking? Of course, I'm playing against MJ Making News. This is not near Earth Hub. There must be a reason why he's playing the Identity with 2 recurring trace credits. You have to figure that he's running some sort of flatline or psychographics, and trashing plus crit was definitely the wrong call. I should have gotten rid of a tinkering instead. So now I'm in huge trouble. If I get tagged, it's game over. The 1 plus crit in my deck is gone. Yes, there's only 1 copy of it. So I just have to keep trying to keep trying my hand at agendas because I'll eventually be blown away by his economic need. With his melange on the table, that spells doom for me. So I immediately get rid of his melange and I clear the tag hastily. But is it too little too late? I'm on 5 agenda points now. And here I make another mistake. I discard the cloak instead of the lockpick, thinking that I wouldn't have enough memory for it. I have the Cybersoft mem drive in my hand and I need the double cloak for Switchblade. So yeah, definitely a mistake made on my part there. And here comes the bad news. Mid-season's replacements. Yep. And I know that I've let him draw basically half his entire deck throughout this entire game because the daily business shows went uncontested. So I'm in a huge world of hurt now. He made a very wise, that was 2 stupid decisions on top of one another. Not trashing his assets and trashing my plus crit. It's gonna bite me right now. My only hope right now is that he still left R&D completely undefended. If I can get 1 more agenda off the top of it, I win the game. Not a breaking news, of course. But I think it's quite obvious by the fact that he iced HQ instead of R&D that there were agendas in HQ. Much more flooded in HQ than R&D. I should have gone for HQ. But I thought that he discarded lots of agendas to Jackson. So yeah. And I hope that if I ran R&D, at least I would see my death coming if another Scorched Turf hit the table. But that wasn't the case. Instead, he drew it as the 3rd card, Scorched Turf into Archive Memories, into another Scorched Turf to close the game. So well played on his part. Or rather, poorly played on my part because I should not have been murdered because plus crit should have saved me. There's a reason why it's in the deck. I didn't use it. What was I thinking, really? Code Siphon is decent, but it really isn't as good as self-modifying code. You would use self-modifying code before Code Siphon. So it's basically there to increase the consistency of you getting your first breaker out, or second breaker as the case might be with Kit. So that is the rationale for using Code Siphon and Kit. If you watched my previous video, you'll notice that I mentioned another use for Code Siphon, and that is in Nasir. Because Nasir can make lots of credits during a run, and he can just Code Siphon R&D, use those credits to get a breaker, and as a reward for getting through the server, he gets another breaker out. So this can really accelerate Nasir's game, and I think you might see that increasingly often. That might be something worth trying. But for now, this Kit deck, I don't like it at all. It has way too little economy. It's not to my liking. Any deck with too little economy is not going to survive in today's meta game, and it showed right here. The mid-season trace was too overwhelming for me to handle. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Happy net running. Goodbye.